it's hard to wake up sometimes and know that as a woman, you don't know where you'll be safe.
1 in 3 women are experiencing gender-based violence by their intimate partner.
Violence that is among the Gen Z is very different because it's now tech violence.
When I was pregnant with my now 9-year-old, reading news, I used to be told you're too pregnant. Sometimes there's this thing where gender equality is seen as a war between genders.
Some lecturers have some really not professional behavior towards female students, and they somehow not even try and like hide it.
If you report your lecturer, that's your future, right? Because who's going to protect you from them?
Because some of these GBV cases, most people know they don't know that they are crime. They think that are things that are normal.
Choking is on the rise.
We've also normalized this thing of sending nudes, and then online kuna kitu inaitwa Tiri Tuesday.
I don't think people think of consent as an ongoing thing, such that even if I'm in an intimate relationship with you, you need to understand that it's not all times I need to have sex. And when I don't need to have sex, you don't need to push yourself on me.
The thing that is very clear is when you don't address something, you normalize it.
The violence towards women sometimes is also perpetuated by their fellow women, which is now that just confuses the whole spectrum.
We've beaten up survivors, their self-esteem, so much that they think whatever is happening to them is okay.
The problem is there's a slack in justice.
We have to hold government accountable, and it's not just the police.
GBV has been spoken about, but if we can fight the budget, we can fight GBV.
So if you're quiet because you feel like you're on the side of privilege, it's just a matter of time before that fire catches up and it burns everyone.
Are we going to be carrying our daughters as handbags at this rate?
My daughter is 4 years old. I'm scared of the world that she's growing up in. My name is Philip Karanja, and I've been producing culture-changing content for about 2 decades now. And in my line of producing content, I've been part of very interesting conversations. And I have a 4-year-old daughter as well. I'm a father. And one of the conversations that I got myself into is just how not safe the world is for my daughter. And I was like, no, isn't stories a jaba? And I was like, I'll go out, find out if this is true. And I'm just trying to figure out what world my daughter is living in. And I reached out to a very good friend of mine, Janet. Thank you so much. It looks like a far-fetched conversation for me from where I'm sitting. So I'm just going to start from here because I think I live in a very secluded and very safe world. How many people in the audience have ever experienced or seen or witnessed sexual violence, or a girlfriend being beaten up by the boyfriend, or vice versa, any type of harassment, just by a show of hands? If you have seen, witnessed, it has happened to you. Dear Lord, it's everyone. Okay. Genuinely, I'm sure. Patricia, I'm going to start with you. You're sitting at the table representing the Gen Zs. Thank you so much for coming through. I am genuinely shocked because I thought your generation, you guys are tribeless, faceless. I thought you'd also be violence-less. Najua kuna jina kama hiyo. But the violence is still there. And on top of that, you guys are tech savvy. So on the internet, there's a lot of cyber bullying and trolling and a lot of other words that you've introduced me to and you will teach me. I thought you guys are different. What's happening there?
I don't know if I should say it's come down from the previous generation. These are conversations we didn't have with the previous generation.
Okay.
So we do experience violence, and the violence that is among the Gen Z is very different because it's now tech violence. So there's a lot of cyberbullying. There's harassment in workplaces. The young people, men and women, they all experience harassment. So yes, it's a conversation that we need to discuss, and from a legal perspective, we also need to implement these laws and make sure that they're very strong laws, and the perpetrators need to be.
Janet, let me throw it over to you.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
Phil, thanks for doing something like this. I think it's so important for somebody like you who, in many ways, is culturally relevant. to have this kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it almost makes it look like there are certain people who have this conversation and then there are others. So
Right.
this is amazing. Equality Now as well for just like bringing everything together. I wouldn't assume, so I'll introduce myself first.
Yeah,
Janet
go.
Mbugua. My background is I was a news anchor, reporter. I do social issues commentary, an influencer, MC, author, activist, mom of boys. I wear many hats. But the one thing for me is I think I was in the newsroom for a long time. So I've tried to interrogate GBV as a journalist, as a woman, as a mom. And what is the scariest thing I think that I observe is the more things change, the more things stay the same. We're almost living in a time when just when we thought there's something we've understood or there's something we've overcome.
Yeah.
2024, I can safely say the world in many ways, even as much as there's progress, there's almost more violence and more of an affront to the rights of people and women and girls, men, boys. And so what is it? I think Patricia mentioned a little bit about culture. Sometimes there's this thing where gender equality is seen as a war between genders. It informs how sometimes we bear the brunt of it because somebody's like, oh, wendo unajua, you know what I mean? So you're gaslit and attacked. Cyberbullying, when I was pregnant with my now 9-year-old, reading news, I used to be told you're too pregnant. Ebu toka hapo. Please somebody explain what too pregnant is. I'd be very happy to know. But it was a war. I was being trolled.
Right.
And that's an idea. So you know, I don't know, I don't like to call myself an expert. I'm just very passionate. I run Inuadada Foundation. I've done it for a few years. It deals with menstrual health, GBV. So I've faced this thing so much in conversations with friends, family. It's a reality. It's hard to wake up sometimes and know that as a woman, you don't know where you'll be safe. When you're in a club and something happens, you're asked to look on Navanini. When you're home speaking back and pushing back to your husband, you don't know how that's going to end. And please understand, this is not blanket condemnation against all men. Those of you who are here today, thank you. We need more male allies. Please don't look at it like it's something against all men. We have to fight the ill, and the ill is the violence. And any one of us in this room can be a victim. But how do we now collectively say we need to talk more about it? But if we don't have these uncomfortable conversations, we'll find ourselves here in 10 years saying, guy, what happened? We just saw a former athlete die the other day.
I'll just pick it up from there.
Yeah.
I actually want to paint a picture of the actual violence. And seated right next to you is Florence Anyim from the National Police Service. Sijui kama unaweza confirm what Janet is saying is true, like it's 2024.
As a National Police Service, we've been wanting even to have opportunity to talk to the youths. Whatever Madam has said is really true. There's an increase in violence, mostly online sexual violence, because even perpetrators have changed their mode of violating those victims. They look at the vulnerability. These days, everyone has mobile phone.
Yeah.
Everyone, even that young child, can go online. And therefore, perpetrators make good use of that opportunity to lure youths, to lure children and everyone into sexual abuses. And maybe you might not know where to report. You might not know that it is an offense. Now it is the right time to be here just to share this information with you. Thank you.
Can I ask something? I think one of the issues that come up a lot is reporting. You know, people say they're scared of reporting because of being re-victimized,
Thank you.
being shamed. Police, and it's not just in Kenya,
Yes.
but they globally, things around GBV
Yeah.
violence. In the UK a few years ago,
They've
we
asked me
saw-
to pass it over to you.
So
Can I?
there was a woman who was lured by a police officer and unfortunately raped and murdered in the UK. How can we change the face and you're doing your work and you're passionate,
Yes.
but the police force in many ways has also been sort of called an enabler, so to speak. We know that there's so many underlying issues, but how can we make people here and their friends and family feel safe to report when they feel like the police won't understand?
Thank you very much. There are so many channels of reporting. Some you can just report if you, maybe if you don't want to be known that you've reported, because maybe you might fear of maybe any threat, or you can just go to police station or into any police officer and report those matters. For example, we have our hotline that maybe you have to know, that is 999. You can just call and identify yourself and report your issue. And there's also a way that you can report. It is called Fichua DCI. Fichua DCI, you don't say whom you are, but you just report the matter. And it's hotline, if you can maybe write it down, 0800 72203. It is a toll-free line. Fichua DCI. Because sometimes you don't want the perpetrator to know that you've reported him or her. In that space, you can report any kind of gender-based violence, be it physical, economical, sexual, etc. Then we can also report at if you go to your phones or your tablets or your maybe laptops. If you go to maybe Chrome or Google, there is this space called KE with capital letters, KE hash CIRT.
Okay.
Now, if you go to that space, you will see reporting. There's so many things happening there, but now if you just click reporting, this is a space where you report online sexual abuses.
There's a lady amongst us in the crowd. She's called Anne Ngonjiri, who works with LVCT, and you just really deal with a lot of gender-based violence victims. Paint for us the picture. What's the reality for ground?
I'm loving this conversation. I'm a big believer, first, before I introduce myself, of nothing for us without us. So we are really championing the meaningful engagement. And this is what exactly it is, where you're the people who are likely to be affected by these forms of violence. We need to hear from you as the implementers, as the programmers. My name is Anne Ngonjiri from LVCT Health. I work in the gender-based violence program with a bias towards violence against children, prevention and response, but it's also my job to keep up with the emerging trends. And one of them is technology-facilitated gender-based violence. The numbers are crazy. I'm not going to lie to you. UNFPA did a study recently, and it showed over 90% of our youth have witnessed technology, have either witnessed or they themselves have been victims, or we call them survivors, that's a more empowering term, victims or survivors of this technology-facilitated violence. The one that is happening on the ground is still pretty high. We did the Kenya demographic survey. It showed 1 in 3 women are experiencing gender-based violence by their intimate partner.
1 in 3.
1 in 3. Figure the maths. At
1 in
least.
3.
Yeah. Yes. 1 in 3 have actually experienced the physical form of it, the sexual form of it, the emotional form of it. The scary thing is that the term intimate partner, this is your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your ex, the one person that you're supposed to be closest to. So for me, just like you, this reality is very, very scary to bring the children up, to be able to imagine what people in our communities are going through. And then you need to understand the repercussions of this violence. It's not just the emotional issues. There's a whole list of suicide ideations, mental health, alcohol use and substance abuse. There's the dropping out of school. There's the unintended pregnancy. This thing that we call teenage pregnancy, and don't acknowledge that there's a perpetrator behind that pregnant teenager. It's a sickening world, and that's the reality of it. When we are talking about the technology part, the scariest part of it is that it is borderless, it is faceless. And not unless we're intentional on addressing that, then it's this monster that we won't be able to fight at all. We need to shift our focus and focus more on preventing it from happening. Why should 90% of our youth experience this thing? When it comes to experiencing this, just as the face-to-face or offline violence, women are at a disadvantage, particularly for technology facilitated. It's 60%, so it's 2 in 3 women, females, have experienced it. For the men, it's slightly low, 2 in 3.
I want to go to the office of the ODPP. Yes, we have Jacqueline Jage. Karibu sana. Do you concur with what everyone is saying? As a prosecutor, are you getting more and more cases of sexual harassment and gender-based violence? Is this a fact?
Thank you, Phil, for this good initiative. Before I answer your question, I also want to ask a question. How many of you have reported GBV?
Out of the 2 and 3.
Out of the 2 and 3, and what Phil said, how many of you report GBV? So we all abate GBV in our homes or in any other setting, right?
Oh my goodness.
We are abaters. We
Yes.
abate the act itself. So we know it happens, we see it, we leave it, but we don't report. Right?
That is so true.
Yes. So yes, SGBV cases are going up. Online sexual exploitation and online exploitation is going up. I want to paint a figure with some data we have. Between 2021 and 2024, 19,000 cases have gotten to court, excluding online exploitation or technologically facilitated GBV. 19,000. Those are the ones that have gotten to court.
Yeah.
How many more have not been reported? That's why I've started with that question. So the cases are going up, abuse is going up, but we are not reporting, we are not pushing it to the judicial system.
Whoa. Ben Psycho, you're good?
I'm very fine. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, thank you so much for coming through. But one of the reasons we wanted to have you in this convo is because you do a roving podcast and you go to campuses.
Yes.
What is being said here? Is this the fact that you found on the ground? Like when you talk to the young people in campuses, is the violence going up?
Oh, that's for sure. So for those who don't know, I'm part of a podcast called the Jared Podcast, and we go to universities to speak about careers in the digital space. Whenever we are talking to people and asking them why they do not want to venture into the online space, the number one reason is trolling and abuse. And this is both for the women and also for the men. I've noticed for the men, most of them don't like acknowledging that the trolling gets to them. But yes, out there on ground, this is a fact that a lot of people are being abused online. And I think the idea that people are faceless, and especially on apps like Twitter or X, but you see, it's now moved to, in fact, nowadays I'm thinking TikTok is even more lethal, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like a Kenyan thing where I'm trying to trace where it starts from when we are kids, and it starts from the mchongwanos that people have, and they kind of look funny at that time.
That's true.
Until it really dents your self-esteem.
Yeah.
You slowly start to believe that. But then later on in life, it graduates to a more violent attack to people. And you see people who are violent or people who are mean towards other people, it's because they're also mean towards themselves. So this is just a projection. You can't be kind to yourself and be unkind to people. So it's always a reflection, and this is the reality on ground. And I think it's starting to get out of hand. This is something that I've noticed, especially on ground when you go to the campuses, that there is a lot more violence happening, especially towards women. And even closer home, I think my wife would get more trolls than I would get, you know? Like, we would be on the same show, I say something, she says something, people would come for her than they would come at me. And then also, what's weird is that the attack towards her, sometimes it's not just from the men, it's also from fellow women. So it also now becomes very weird that sometimes the violence towards women sometimes is also perpetuated by their fellow women, which is, now that's just confuses the whole spectrum.
The thing that is very clear is when you don't address something, you normalize it.
Absolutely.
What I think happens is a lot of violence has been socially normalized.
Mm-hmm.
So the way he talked about Njongwano and all that, we don't, because you don't talk about it, you don't say, you don't even prioritize it.
Mm-hmm.
When we did the End Femicide March in February,
Yeah.
I remember just wondering, the fact that almost no political leaders, for example, either had something solid to say or were allies.
Or corporates.
Thank you. Then you're complicit.
Yeah.
Because you're basically saying it's not that big a deal. And what message does that send to perpetrators? It makes them say it's fair game. So if it's not prioritized, remember the way the fight against HIV/AIDS?
Yes, yes.
And maybe she'll speak to it. It was everyone.
It was declared a
It was
national.
declared, and if that doesn't happen, basically you're saying it's not an issue. Without saying it, you're saying it. And that is the most dangerous thing. That's why it keeps happening.
It's good what Janet has said. But like I started with my question, how many of us report? We are all complacent. I've been at this journey for the last 23 years. So you can imagine what I have seen, heard, and done. But we are still talking GBV in 2024.
Yeah.
Why is it not happening? Why is it not reducing? So what am I saying in a nutshell? We have known, he has talked about women being on the platform, learning more about GBV, knowing more about GBV. But the same woman tomorrow will be the abuser, will be the perpetrator. And Anne can support this. When HIV talk started, everyone was being told, ni jukumu lako.
Yes.
Why is it not jukumu letu when it comes to GBV? We say it's ainua dada. It's equality now.
Yeah.
It's, so let it start from us and not from the outsider, not from the civil society. Let it start from us so that we are not being told we are complacent about GBV.
What happened? What was the trigger for the government to decide, HIV is now a national disaster? That has not happened now. How can we make this conversation that loud so that the president pays attention?
Government will always talk if their own is touched. Right? Kama hatujapata mtu, but we've always had people who have been violated. My first case was a very sad case.
Yeah.
Allow me, Madam DCI, to talk about it. It was actually a police officer who was violated in terms of GBV beaten up by a colleague who was a husband. I can mention it because it's a long-gone case, the Kavata case. If you Google, you'll see it. This is a police woman who died in pain, violated by pain. And then we saw the police move in to take action on GBV, on gender-based violence. But again, they stepped back. But I think now the push has to come from the youth.
When you look at this whole issue, I'd love, how then do we draw the line between gender-based violence, especially on the online space, and trolling, and the people who do that always come up with the argument that it's freedom of speech, such that even if Gava was to step in, the government doesn't push also that boundary too much to a point where now you can't give an opinion that contradicts, maybe say the government. Because even when you look at online attacks, our former president was attacked on online so much that he left. Do you know what it takes for you to bully a president until he's like, I'm sure he's so busy, he has so many PAs, but it got to him that he actually had to leave the platform. And so my question would be, how do we balance all those, and what are the demarcations so that also this thing is not pushed to a point where now it now starts to limit what you say online?
Absolutely. Thank you. First of all, this is a personal opinion. I think before you open any social media account, tunafaa kupeana ID so that we can track. If you attack someone, it's easier to track, my thinking. But then again, people argue that, now we lose the anonymity, so I can't report some cases. But that's my personal opinion. But Patricia will help me from a legal perspective. Patricia works with Equality Now, who are our amazing partners, who've also enabled us to have this conversation. She'll help me from a legal perspective to answer that question. Where's the line? Also, define for us, what is this thing we're calling violence, sexual violence? Easy to zote, please. From a legal perspective, expound for us.
It's okay. The youth are going to speak out about it, but the problem is there's a slack in justice that is very evident. You find that cases of sexual violence are not addressed, and even if they're addressed, they take a very long time. And most of the time, you find the victims are pulling out. The police, you've talked about reporting. For starters, I didn't even know about Future DCI. That's very nice. But this is me, and I don't know if everyone knew about Future DCI. So you see, like we don't have access to these channels, or rather they do exist, but no one knows about them. So how do you tell a victim, like, please go report, and they don't even know where to report? And when they go to the police station, there's a lot of victim blaming and victim shaming. That is a fact. You will go to the police station, they will look at you like, yani, so such things do happen. So I'm just putting it out there.
Okay.
Sorry if you not was your question.
Define for us what is rape, assault, sexual harassment.
Yes, thank you. So as a Gen Z lawyer,
yes, please, in Gen Z terms. No, I'm kidding.
I'll try with Gen Z terms, but we do have laws that govern and they talk about protection of women and girls. So we have international laws, regional and also nationally. So for international, we have it's called the CEDAW. That's the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. We also have the Declaration of Elimination of Violence Against Women. And regionally, we have the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of women in Africa. It's known as the Maputo Protocol. It's something that we quite are now very passionate about. And nationally, we have the Constitution with the people.
Mandatory. Shall.
So we do have this. The Constitution just basically gives about forms of torture. We have the Penal Code, the Sexual Offences Act. We have the Protection of Domestic Violence Against Women, and we also have this Counter Trafficking in Persons Act that discusses sexual exploitation. So these acts, they do define what rape is, what sexual assault is, what sexual harassment is, and they are punishable offences. So should I describe what rape is?
Well, okay. I mean, they will tell us what's happening on ground. But I've had terms like doxing being mentioned.
Oh, yes.
Yes. What is that?
Before we get to doxing, we also have the Cyber Crimes Act. This is very important, especially continuing our conversation, that defines what cyber harassment is. So we can have a look at it at section 27. And then we have doxing. So doxing is taking information, personal information of somebody and posting it online with malicious intent. A very good example of doxing is what happened during the Gen Z movement. Kusalimiana is doxing, and our cabinet secretary for defense, she really went through it, and especially in a feminine perspective, it was quite sad to just look at what she was going through. So that is doxing, just taking information and posting it online with a malicious intent, and that is what we are going through.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe I'll hear from the students, a gentleman and a lady. We try and balance it out. So ni nini ina happen campo? What's really going on? Wengine wetu tulimaliza shule kitambo, so we might not actually having had the definition.
So my name is Lynn Kemunto. I'm from Daystar University, main campus. What's happening on campus? Cyberbullying is really something that actually happens so rampant. It happens like jokes. Mtu ana comment kitu and you're like, really? Yeah, and the lady, I've forgotten the name, Anne, mentioned about intimate partners being violent. I have witnessed personally. There's a place where I was staying. The guy got angry, and apparently it's been happened so often. The guy got angry and then started beating up the chili to the point of her friend had to come and bring her to another house so the guy can calm down. Unfortunately, usage of drugs is something so often. So the guy was drunk and the girl was they had a very minor conflict, and then they started like beating each other, and it became like a very serious thing.
There's a lot of, you're calling it revenge porn?
Revenge porn.
Yes, is this part of doxing? Where does that fall?
It does contribute to
it. Does contribute. Okay.
Hello, my name is Eric. I'm from the University of Nairobi. I think for me, I haven't really seen gender-based violence in such rampant form in person, but I think from the stories that I've been told, through the friends I have and the networks people have, and most of them have been female. Like, for example, they've told me about, especially lecturers, the relationships with them. Some lecturers have some really not professional behavior towards female students, and they somehow not even try and like hide it. And it's really tempting for somebody when you know that trying to engage in this is maybe a sure bet towards getting a good grade, and maybe even just opening opportunities for you in case now the lecturer approaches you, in case now the lecturer gets something that he might want to share with you. And this is something that I've been really told a lot. And also from maybe the young professionals, the ones who've graduated, they've also mentioned about having a lot of this sexual what their bosses, they have this habit of trying and exploiting them because they're new in the sector. And there's also that lure that you have the option of like trying, you're going to climb up the ranks by engaging in this. And there's also this one particular story that really caught me. A friend of mine was telling me that one of her friends, they used to be really close. So it's a female friend telling me about her friend. They used to be really close, and they used to come. She was very active in school. She was very active in class. And then all of a sudden, she disappeared for like, a whole week. She's not being seen. Don't know what's happening. So the friend, they weren't that close, but she was concerned about where's this friend of mine going. And she decided to, call. The friend wasn't even picking up. Fortunately, she knew where the friend lived. And when she decided to visit the place, she found out that she wasn't actually in her home for like the whole week. The parents were also looking for her and what was happening, and I don't know what. So I don't know, I think through somehow the friend group, they found out that the girl was actually pregnant, and the boyfriend who got her pregnant was kind of now restricting her movement towards her home so that maybe time could go by and maybe I don't know what was going to happen to the baby. And this girl was like a bit worried, like, this boy is doing this to you. The guy leaves and goes to work, and you have the opportunity to just leave home and go to the police station or go to your parents and just tell them everything that has happened. And then it's like that got her thinking as to why some people stay in such environments. And I think Janet, when she approached that, I told her that that's something I'm really curious about. Like, you find that some people have this, they still remain in toxic environments, yet they have the chance to go. Like, what can we do about such?
I'll let you comment, and just to prove the ODPP's point, have you reported any of these cases?
Unfortunately, no.
Did you report?
It was reported, definitely. The student council was involved.
Okay.
Same incident that he has mentioned. Unfortunately, it's my cousin who was in the same situation. It was very hard for her. She was in a mental state to the point of she couldn't air out her views.
Thank you so much. I just from your point, how many guys here in Campo have heard that story of lecturers trading grades for sex? You've actually had it happening in your campus. So hii kitu iko kabisa. And has something been done? Florence and Janet, you wanted to respond.
Okay, I just wanted to respond. Maybe some of the few cases as police officers we received from university students. We received a call on our toll-free line from a lady from the university. She had a boyfriend, and now when they were still together, they were having sex. Sometimes they were bathing naked, and they could take videos. It reached a point now the relationship ended. Now this man started threatening this lady. It ended up the man shared those photos with the friends of that woman. Now the woman, anytime she passed through the friends started shouting and narrating how she is. And she was really tortured. Now she reported to us, and we took them at home. Thank you.
Maoni.
Yeah.
Phil is processing.
Man, I have dissonance, man. Yes.
I had a small chat with him earlier when he said, I don't know why people leave. Some of the things that can address these issues may sound very simple and boring. I know people who, it's very hard to tell somebody to leave. Go where? It sounds mean, it sounds insensitive. People are not safe.
Yeah.
We don't have enough safe houses. I know she's doing the best she can as a police officer, but we don't have enough empathetic police officers. We don't have enough access to justice. We don't have enough access to medical help. So this person is stuck.
Yeah.
She's a prisoner. A lot of the time, especially if she doesn't have her own finances, she's stuck. There's a safe house I support in Mombasa, and every woman who's there is hiding. Some of them with their children and daughters who've also been victims of what's happened to the mom. So if we have, number one, and I know it sounds so simplistic, and I think everything that happened with the Maandamano kind of gave us an idea. You have to speak. And it sounds like it's very like, Bwana, give us another solution. As long as it's not being talked about, not necessarily reporting, because I'm sure everybody here wants to report, but you're scared about what the power dynamics will be. If you report your lecturer, that's your future, right? Because who's going to protect you from them? If you report your partner, who maybe has access to finances or has better access, what's going to happen to you? There's a statistic that actually says a lot of people who've maybe been stalked or left and reported have often been then killed by that person.
Yeah.
So this is the reality people are facing. They want to report. They want to do something. But if we don't have enough resourcing for like the SGBV courts, I don't know how the SGBV courts, there's quite a number of them now. I know they're small, maybe they can speak to it. If we don't have enough safe houses, if we don't have enough access to people who can protect us, then what are you going to do? But if everyone here is able to say and think about the 1 or 2 or 3 things I can say or do, we saw the power of what you guys can do.
Yeah.
The world have seen the power of what you guys can do. But at the same time, I know that it's nerve-wracking. But please, from today, educate yourselves. Think about how you can move in numbers and just speak about it. If you're scared of going public about GBV, some of us, there's nothing we've not been called. We are noisemakers. But it's because there's so many other, and they'll DM, even people who are well-known. They're like, hey, Bwana, thank you for saying that. So you'll take a hit because you don't want to keep quiet. Because if you're quiet, then you know it's because you're not prioritizing the issue. But I just want to encourage everyone, have a conversation after this with your girlfriends, with your partner, with your friends and family. Just have a conversation about like, hey man, what can we do in our own little way? How can we push for more? What can we do at home? What can we do in schools? It may not sound like a sophisticated solution, but if we don't do that, if we don't push hard enough for justice, we'll keep finding ourselves here. So the ladies who want to escape, they'll go where?
There is a conversation I did not anticipate I will have in Nairobi, but just talking to the people in the room, Florence just mentioned FGM. Like in my head, FGM ni vitu za Zambali, unajua ushago, like Nairobi, FGM.
It's here.
But that's not the case, is it?
No, and it's even it can even be in flashy residential areas.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
You know what's wild, Phil? If you think about what happened in Afghanistan, I know that sounds a bit far off, just 1 or 2, 3 years ago, when Taliban came, you heard them in press conferences with very heavy British accents. And they were like, we need the women to get out of school. We need them to not go. We need them to not work. People who are educated, who you think would know better, are pushing for oppression. Because that press conference will never leave me. Heavy British accents. Maybe you've gone to Oxford or Leeds, but you go back to tell your country, women need to be oppressed, please. And so that's why they're trying to escape. So there's a war on safety. There's a war on, and this is men and women, which is true. I spoke to a gentleman not too long ago who is still suffering from the scars of acid being poured on him by his ex-wife. So it's a reality. And sometimes when you allow inequality long enough, it will affect everyone.
Oh, Absolutely.
Yeah, so
That's
with
true.
equality for women, they're told, oh, but you're fair game now. Because you didn't protect her, sometimes he's also not protected because you're not prioritizing our lives. So we have to say something. We have to continue these conversations until something shifts, until people are scared to be violent. People are not scared, they'll just keep being violent.
And I think now what can make people to report is to create awareness, because some of these GBV cases, most people know they don't know that they are crime. They think that are things that are normal. So we have to create that awareness. And there's a program we're running called Piganduru with the Ministry of Health, how now to sensitize members of the community. That because it is not a must that the victim, we have primary victim and secondary victims. Primary victims are the real survivors, while secondary victims are now the relatives who are also affected by the victimization of the primary victim. So anyone can piganduru. Even the neighbor can piganduru. Now piganduru means reporting. Don't keep quiet. We have to be our brother's keeper.
Let's talk about the work culture, sexual harassment at the workplace, and the dating scene as well. I'm sorry, I'm throwing you under the bus.
My name is Ngena. I am an entrepreneur and a podcaster, and my entrepreneurship is currently in financial literacy. So I'll start with the work culture. I haven't been employed formally for more than 9 months. I think some of us are just born entrepreneurs.
Right.
But let me talk about the entrepreneurship side of it. So I was having a business in light fixtures. So I would do site visits, buy people lights. Yeah. So one of these site visits I did was for a restaurant somewhere in Karen. And, young girl, 20-something, just gotten into the entrepreneurship space and very excited. And it was just me and the owner of the restaurant at the time, who was a guy. So I was there in one of the spaces he was trying to renovate, just me and him. And I was trying to do my thing, measurements and all. And then something starts happening. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So he makes a move. He tries to push himself on me, and I was very scared in that moment. I literally took a step back and left. And in that moment, I didn't even leave immediately because I remember just not understanding what was happening. And after a while, I stopped doing site visits because I just didn't feel safe. Like, unless it was someone like a married woman in her house by herself, I'm not going because it just didn't feel safe anymore. So currently my business is almost 100% online because I just think I didn't expect that going into business. I didn't expect that being so young, being such a young entrepreneur and experiencing that.
Right.
And I wish I knew, but then even if I did, I don't know what I would have done differently. It's that state where I wish things were different. I wish the world was a different place.
Right.
Even in business.
Yeah.
So that's what I can say about that. It's hard to predict. And I guess now I'm older, I know a bit better and I can protect myself a bit more. But it's still one of those things.
Absolutely.
Economically related violence. So you find in very many settings when the man has money and he's sustaining the woman, she won't speak out on violence because she knows, hey, if I talk, my man is going to cut me off financially. So very many women are experiencing this economically related violence.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm really enjoying this space, especially because I work for Alliance for Women and Girls. So something I wanted to add on the dating scene, also being a Gen Z, is the issue of consent. I don't think people think of consent as an ongoing thing, such that even if I'm in an intimate relationship with you, you need to understand that it's not all times I need to have sex. And when I don't need to have sex, you don't need to push yourself on me. So I've had a situation where a friend was actually raped in an intimate relationship. So she didn't want to have sex with a boyfriend, and he pushed himself on her. And that traumatized her for some time because they were having issues with the boyfriend and she was in a narcissistic relationship. So this is something that I think we as young people need to look at, that even if you have your girlfriend, you have your boyfriend, look at consent as something that is ongoing. Respect my decision, respect my body as a woman. Something else I'd also want to pose as a challenge to the National Police Service and generally the government agencies. There's a barrier in terms of communication. you've heard from all of us, you've never heard of Fichua DCI. I have personally never heard of that. And I've actually worked in the SGBV sector. The National Police Service and other government agencies involved in GBV management should partner with influencers in the digital space. The Gen Zs and the young people who are experiencing this are online. And we need to hear more of these conversations. We need to hear more of these platforms. Where do we report? How can we do this anonymously? So this is a challenge to you, to Janet Mbugua, to Phil, to Ben Psycho, and other upcoming influencers. Let's do this together. Collaboration would really work.
You know, you said something, you've used a word that's very important, which is consent. You know, sometimes, and I think she alluded to it, sometimes people don't know that they're going through violence. Emotional abuse. You don't know that when you're being gaslit or triggered, and that's, again, across the board. There's something we can do individually first to educate yourself. Like, ask yourself, have I ever crossed a line? Accountability is hard, but what that does is it makes you ask questions before assuming. For example, let me go to some places which are a bit interesting. Let me see how to put this. So first of all, consent, the way she said, when you are in the act, somebody can still, you can use I think it's called a safe word to stop.
Right.
Right? And I think the more people know, men and women, because sometimes it's also the man who's like, I want to take 5.
Yeah.
And somebody's just like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
We are almost at the finish line. There's a study the other day that talked about the rise of choking. Choking is on the rise. Choking, that's why I said I'm going to go to places that I'm sorry.
Okay, that's good.
And the reason it was a study in Australia, it was saying 49% of people either carried out or it's carried out. Then they said it's a blurry line because it's also causing, apparently, brain injuries or affiliated with it.
You're restricting
flow. And yet but some of the recipients were like, but me, I consented. You know, others were like, I didn't consent. I tried to wave my hand for the person to stop. And so it's very blurry. Because what if the person says, I thought you were enjoying it. And she's saying, no, you were going to make me pass out. I've gone to a bit of a in-depth place which is uncomfortable. And I know these lines are blurry. But it's so important to have awareness around your boundaries and to communicate them. The disadvantage is some people don't care. And that's why rape and sexual assault happen, is they'll breach the boundary because of the entitlement. But sometimes you knowing as a young man, a young woman means you can do better. That even as a woman, I've been in a situation where I asked somebody, are you comfortable? And I'm the woman, because I don't want to assume.
Yeah.
You know? So it's about self-agency and knowing. It's a step. It's not the biggest solution, but it's a step to know when your boundaries are being violated or if you yourself are violating a boundary. And I think doing that begins a really big conversation. I've seen a few shows that have tried to use safe words, like, series. And I'm like, that's good. They're normalizing it in pop culture. Okay. And then it educates a man, it educates a woman, because suddenly you're saying, oh, I'm aware, I didn't know that I was actually violating. It's uncomfortable, but these are like the in-depth things that can...
just on normalizing a lot of things, a lot of what you're talking about, pop culture, we've also normalized this thing of sending nudes, and then online, kuna kitu inaitwa Tiri Tuesday. Unaona? This is how we're making these things normal, you know? And utamka tu on a random Tuesday and you'll just find boobs online. And it's because... It's lazima tusababishe, you know. Yes, please.
As I just grabbed, you know what's interesting? This shouldn't be problematic. There's agency, right? Where somebody is like, it shouldn't mean that I can become a victim. If I'm wearing that short dress, if I'm showing my cleavage, I'm not inviting violence. Now, I'm not validating Titties Tuesday. There's a lot of culture shifting in the mind that we need to do. Otherwise, we're making it so easy to victim blame. I hear you about normalizing. Porn, I think, is it's on the highest rise it's been in a really long time since COVID.
Yeah.
So it's normalizing violent sex. It's and then things are normalizing. I think it's called being an exhibitionist when you show off your body.
Right.
Whereas in some places that does not amount to being violated. We are conservative. I have to put that in quotes. I'm sorry, but we are.
Yeah.
We identify as conservative as Kenyans. And so that way, when somebody shows off her cleavage, we're like, "Batona vile alikuwa amevaa." So what we need to actually do is educate people on whatever you see her wearing, whatever she's doing. If you don't like it, you'd rather look away. If you use that as an invitation to come at her and think she's loose and think she's fair game, suddenly you've gone from being a normal person to being a perpetrator. And there was a very scary exhibition I once saw of outfits of rape survivors. And it was all kinds of outfits. It was jeans and a hoodie. It was booty shorts.
Yeah.
It was, this is very triggering, but it was a diaper. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the way somebody talked about how we view women, how the bodies are not ours, that's what's causing a lot of these things. I don't see why being sexually active or being abstinence should still be considered choices. It shouldn't define who you are. It shouldn't say if you're choosing to be sexually active, you're loose. If I'm choosing to be abstinent, I'm a prude. Either way, whatever choice you make should be respected. The biggest mistake is being violated because of who you are. And as a woman, it's a daily reality.
We have to know what really consent means. Because it is not just consent, but it is informed consent. Because remember, consent can even be gained through threat or coercion, or even intoxication. Unasikia mtu anakuwekea mchele, then you just become unconscious, then he or she rapes you. So it must be in an informed consent. Then at what point can we withdraw our consent? Consent can be withdrawn before the act. It can also be withdrawn during the act. How can it be withdrawn during the act? Sometimes you consented that mutaendelea the front part. Then as you continue, the person just decides to go behind without your consent. You can always withdraw that consent at that time, but you cannot withdraw the consent after the act.
When are we going to have this conversation about drugs? Because as we are getting more informed and sensitized on gender-based violence and sexual assault, as drug abuse is going up, so are the assaults. So we can't leave this conversation. The average in the 70s of a heavy drinker was 5 to 7 beers. Squeeze hiyo ni pre-game. Medically, a heavy drinker is someone who does 5 to 7 beers. Ama nimedanganyana, mnakunywa sana, ukweli uongo. Ladies, gentlemen, uko backbench, atuambe tu ukweli.
Yes, it's a major conversation amongst the youths, especially ones in university. So yeah, I believe it's a major contributor to the gender-based violence. Yes.
How can we manage this scourge? I mean, it's 2024, surely. Why are we beating up our girlfriends and vice versa? Why are we still raping girls? What's wrong with us? Is there an end to this scourge? Is it even possible? Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, my daughter is 4 years old. I'm scared of the world that she's growing up in. And I don't want to hire 7 bodyguards to follow her every day for the rest of her life. So I want a safer world for my daughter. Just personal views.
I'll start by saying these conversations are what we need to have, and a lot more of them, and a lot publicer. Let me say it like that. Yeah?
We need to normalize.
Yes, we need to normalize these conversations, because a lot of the time also, you find even in whatever content creation that we may be doing, as soon as the issue of GBV or SGBV comes up, people tend to like, like you touched us, what, like, okay, now let's scroll. Like, we are uncomfortable having these conversations. We need to find out why. Why are we uncomfortable? Why is it that we don't want to face the reality? Is it because we are afraid of facing what we've experienced ourselves or what we are putting other people through? But we need more of these conversations. And to also push it back to you, and maybe also Ben, because you're you said your daughter is 4,
Yes.
and he just had a son. Congratulations. But now that we've had this conversation, what will change with how you're raising your daughter? What do you think will be different for you now?
I've just realized how much my daughter is not safe, and I wish I can make it better for my daughter. I'm just going to have very honest and brutal conversations.
I'll definitely have to start this conversation with him as soon as, maybe he starts being aware of what's happening. I've noticed the past 2 weeks, he doesn't like being changed diapers, doesn't like people touching him. I'm like, okay, that's a good start. You should touch this part.
Yeah.
And it's just to teach him that, just as Phil has said, that there's so many sick people out there, he needs to be very careful. For guys nowadays, it's becoming a thing. Like, guys are being raped. And, maybe most of them don't speak because there's a lot of stigma around it. But also now to teach him to respect the girls and to see them as equals and just as people who deserve the same opportunities as he's going to get as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sorry. You just mentioned guys. This is from my observation. When a guy gets assaulted, right now, it's actually, I don't want to say easier, but guys are reporting more. Now, I happen to sit in such a forum, and we were just talking casually, and this conversation came up, and we started talking to the ladies, and the ladies are getting assaulted by fellow ladies in clubs. It is so rampant. In that group, every single lady at some point had been assaulted. Like, you're clubbing, you're high, then the next thing your girlfriend is touching you kila mahali, kidogo kidogo mikono imefika sijui wapi. Now, this is the part that shocked me. None of the ladies actually thought to report that. And asked them, you guys know that's rape, that's sexual assault. But for some reason, when it's another girl who's done it on me,
Human beings have a tendency to push. They push the limit, Nowadays, it started with the men against the women. It will go now to the women against the men. Then it goes to the men against the men. Then now the women against the women. So if you're quiet because you feel like you're on the side of privilege, it's just a matter of time before that fire catches up and it burns everyone. As men, maybe I can also give my comments.
Yeah, well. For sure, as we wind up. Yeah.
One of the ways in which we'll cap this is when you see a woman being attacked as a guy and she's being attacked by another guy, stand up and speak up for her. When the ladies see that there's a guy being attacked by women, stand up and against that lady. All of us, there's a lot of input that we can add into that whole conversation. I remember one time when I was in campus, I was in number 3 going home. And so this conductor was calling people, and then there was this lady, she was a bit petite. So the guy just groped her breast, akambeba juu, akamwingiza kwa mat. And the lady akaingia, akakama, akakaa next to me. So I was like, did I see right? Do they know each other, or what happened? So I just asked her, did this guy just grope you? And she was like, yes, that's what happened. Man, I felt so bad about it. I felt like this was such a shame. Now, I was very small, and this guy is now, that Matri has like 4 makangas already, So that's a lost battle. So when I was about to alight, I knew now, Niko home, like even if they beat me, I just scream, people come save me, the Mama Mbokas know me, And I remember confronting them, and I went really hard, like, why would you do that? That was so wrong. I was up on his face, and I just went home. So later on, the lady, I think, finds me on Instagram. She's like, thanks so much that you spoke up against it. The guy came and apologized. He said he's sorry, he'll never repeat that. And when I was speaking at that time, I thought it was such a small insignificant. In fact, I was doing it nikiwa on a walk. In fact, Mati ilikuwa inasimama, so I was about to just jump out, just in case things go really south, But you can see such a small thing can also trigger that guy to know that this is some madness that we don't want to tolerate out here. So if it happens and you're quiet, you're also propagating this bad behavior. We should all stand up against it. So if it happens and you're quiet, you're also propagating this bad behavior. We should all stand up against it.
Thank you. I'm picking from you and Janet. Let's start speaking up. It starts from there.
What has been described is what you call bystander interventions. We've beaten up survivors, their self-esteem, so much that they think whatever is happening to them is okay. That goes back to our culture. Unfortunately, we still want to live in the world where my grandmother was living, where there were safer communities than they are right now. We still want that culture to govern us. What it will start taking to change that is us speaking up. If you do not report, that these mechanisms that government is putting in place are not functioning for you, nothing is going to change. We have to hold government accountable. And it's not just the police, it's the education sector, MOE, your universities, it's the social protection, it's the Ministry of Gender. All these people have offices, it's just the DF people. If you know there's a street where there's no lighting, that is a risk factor for violence. Are you making enough demand kuambia huyo mtu tuwekee taa hapo and reduce some of these risk factors that are there in the community? If you think that there's too much alcohol abuse and substance use, because there are so many containers within university, what are you doing about it? So it will have to take the same kind of mandamano, the same kind of fight against government, holding them accountable, blasting them, shaming them, that they're not improving the environment, that they're not taking things in action. What they're doing is they're waiting for things to happen, and then now is when you see the statistics on the ground. You don't have to be a statistic, and you can speak up about it right now.
We are talking about violence happening out there. Mm-hmm. But even in your house, your brother, your sister, your father, your houseboy, your house help could be the perpetrator. True. So as you're teaching your daughter survival tactics in there, also teach them about survival tactics in the house. Yeah. Why am I saying this? I have been listening and very keenly. We are talking about GBV happening out there. No. But it's always with us. That's in our homes, in our paths, everywhere we walk. And we must be very conscious. For me, I have seen it, I have heard it, I have seen how a survivor or a victim looks. It's not a very good thing to see, it's not a very good thing to think about. When we started this talk, I kept asking everyone, are we going to be carrying our daughters as handbags at this rate? GBV has been spoken about. But if we can fight the budget, we can fight GBV. Gen Z, this is to you. Kama mnaweza sema budget haitapita vile ilivyo, hata GBV itaisha kesho. Kenya has laws, we are replete. But the only challenge that we have right now, we have to think about our Sexual Offences Act. Mm-hmm. It does not address online sexual exploitation. It does not. It doesn't speak about technologically facilitated. And this is the right time. We are amending that law. We are reviewing. We are not even amending. We are reviewing that law. And if the voice of the Gen Z is not in it, it's still going to remain the same. Guess who passes the law? If they can remove a section that says that if I accuse Phil of raping me, I will serve the same term. They will also remove those things that don't favor them. You see? Mm-hmm. So let us be cautious about what is happening in our environment. And especially at this time, we are talking about the review of the Sexual Offences Act. I know equality now can lead us to that area where we can get our voices in that law.
Just to start with, police officers, we are not sole custodian of national security. We cannot work alone. We have to collaborate with other actors. We have to collaborate with the members of the public. We have to collaborate with students like you. Just we need you to give us information. If you don't give us information, how will we know that you are violated so that we take action? It will just be ending up a blame game. Criminal investigations, who work at the cyber crime unit, who can handle those online sexual abuses. And they are in cooperation with the Communication Authority of Kenya. In fact, some of them are attached there. So don't fear anything, just report. You can always report even online on that platform. I gave you, there's a place that reports, and those Communication Authority of Kenya, they have liaisons on those online platforms. So don't fear. We need you to cooperate with us so that you give us intelligence. Then also, I want you to maybe you create awareness to maybe your colleagues in the churches, where you worship, among your homes. It is just create awareness so that people may know these cases, they have been criminalized by law, and if they are reported, they will always get help. Just parting shots. You cannot learn how to ride a bicycle by merely reading a manual. You have to go outside there and do it practically.
I know, anytime we tell someone to go and report to the police, no one will get to the police station. If I told you to walk to Muthangari, most of you would not get there if it's a sexual violation or any kind of abuse. Now, there are very many places you can report, including the ODPP. Remember, the DPP has the power to direct the IG to investigate. Other than that, you can also use this, the State Department of Gender, the civil societies that are around here to be the agent that takes the report to the police. Because I know going to the police is really challenging, even for me as a prosecutor. If I'm violated today, to go to the police nitapata nani pale kwa desk, and if there is no gender desk, who will I be reporting to? To a guy who will be telling me niwaoneshe vile ilifanywa? No. Yes.
From a legal perspective, I think I'll just echo what Jacqueline has stated. We need to strengthen the laws that are existing. The laws do exist, but they're very weak, so we need to strengthen them, and we need to have these laws address the problem as it is. Tech violence, I don't think there's a law that actually governs that, and that is why so many people are getting away with online sexual violence. So we need to have laws that actually discuss and implement them. From a Gen Z perspective, the social media platforms are a very powerful tool. So we need to use it as a Gen Z, not even as a Gen Z, as everyone. Let's use the social media. The same way we have so much energy shaming the victim, let's also shame the perpetrators. Let's, like when you go to online, Ben stated about TikTok. I was looking at a TikTok of a young girl, and there's somebody who said, "Mulisema kamitini how long?" Let's go there and shame that person. Like, what are you saying? Let's shame them. Let's have that energy towards shaming the perpetrators, and let's hold the government accountable. We're looking at all these cases. The Rita Waini case, they've never gotten her killer. We're looking at Starletwa, who, such cases, and like we need to have a conversation about it. Let me not cry because I'm like, this is, yeah, so we really need to have these conversations.
I feel like also there's a rise in violence because as men, we have lost our path, we've lost ambition, so we are trying to be the dominating gender again. And the only way we know how to do that is to go back to very archaic, traditional ways, like let's beat up our girlfriends and our wives. And yeah, we need a heavy conversation as men.
My name is Victor Njuki.
Yeah.
So I think a very important thing we can do is sensitize civic education in a way that we know that we're supposed to speak out. We don't have to live in a world where we're oppressed because we have the right to speak out. We have a voice that we can use.
My name is Gregory Atuke Masore. I am an engineering student at the University of Nairobi. On the side of legal, I think what Kenya should do, we should have a sexual offenders list like USA. Whereby, thank you. Whereby if you offend someone sexually, it will stick to your name. Ukienda kuulizia job, wanaona you are a sexual offender, nobody will give you that job. Alafu tena, we should accept the way we've accepted that thieves exist. We should accept that rapists exist. For example, nikienda tao sahi, niketi kwa matatu, nifungwe dirisha yote, nianze kutumia simu, alafu niibiwe. Nikuje niwaambie, wase, manze nimeibiwa simu. Mtaniuliza, umeibiwaje? Nawaambia, manze nimekitivi kwa mat, nimefungwa dirisha yote, nimeanza kutumia simu. I'm sure ni wote mtaniambia wewe ni mjinga. Kabisa. Kweli. Sisemi ati all rape cases the fault is ni a victim, but as much as you say utambia your daughter she has the right to dress any clothes she want. Kuna venye anaweza vaa utabambika. True or false? True or false? True. Yes. Yeah. So, hiyo ndio point niliwataka kusema.
Please, without knowing it, you've still victim blamed, and that's something that needs to be worked on. I hear like when you're saying Lameva, that is not an invitation for rape and abuse, and unfortunately, that is one of the biggest reasons why it happens. Alikuwa ameva nini? It shouldn't matter because, like I said, if you look at what people have won and still been violated, even in a bui. It doesn't matter. Rape is rape. You know, a lot of these solutions start with self-checking. That's what I said. There are times I thought I knew better and had to self-check. I constantly went on a journey of educating myself. I'm not here because I woke up and I was born an activist. It's because I kept trying to find where the pain points are. I was like, why is this happening? And the more you looked at situations, the more you realized that mentality of where a woman or girl belongs, what she should or shouldn't wear, how she should behave and shouldn't behave, is the simplest way to create victims out of all of us, as opposed to saying, it's none of my business. So we need to go back to, why do we think it's okay to come for those people? Why do we think we have power and dominance over them? Because our minds are saying, she's lesser than me. It's inequality. She's fair game. Everybody needs to self-check. Women enable it as well. Men enable it. Self-check. Self-check. Because the moment you let that slide, you've created another victim.
My name is Brenda. On the physical abuse side of it, of GBV, we should know that it's okay to walk out of abusive relationships. Because at the end of the day, people will talk. And if you fear how people will talk, it is you that is hurting. It's normal. It's okay to leave.
So I think the police also need to be a bit, I don't know, just create an environment where someone can comfortably report and validate the experiences of these survivors. Make sure, for instance, if a young girl gets pregnant, the society is so easy to like bash her and tell her she's not going to amount to anything. Whereas, mungetumia your opportunity to like encourage her and tell her you can pick it up from here. Life is not ending, which will in turn encourage also girls who are in that moment, like you're going through the same thing in that moment, to report peer. Because if you're constantly being bashed, there's no way guys are going to report. And that these things are happening, but they're not being reported because you're not creating the environment for us.
You've traveled the world having conversations about this. One, is there any progress that's being made? You know, today we've just been hearing the cases are getting worse and worse. Give us some hope, you know, and what more can we do to make this world a better place?
I feel like Gen Z have heard a lot of, it's on you. I know it's a big responsibility. I don't think you guys realized what you did was powerful. And I know it was with millennials and other people. The point is, be the ones that start to shake the tree now, to the point where by the time you're in the workforce, etc., this is something that's unheard of. If somebody comes to you and approaches you in a way that's made you uncomfortable, hugging you, trying to kiss you, you need to report it. Because a lot of what's happened is we normalized it. So we can't be afraid to break this really toxic cycle. We're doing it now. We're doing it as in this conversation. We're doing it by, I'm sure people, some of you have learned something. Some of you have also taught us. It can't stop. Sustaining momentum on advocacy is not easy, but it's necessary. And this is long game. Don't talk about it here and then pretend it never happened. Revisit this conversation. Revisit it with people around you. Because the truth is, guys, each and every one of us can be that victim. It's not a nice thing to say. We should still love this world and thrive, but it's true. And it's because we're not speaking up enough. We're not pushing back enough. Why should I see another guy who's maybe a lower build than me or a woman as any less than me? We are the same people, and so we deserve to treat each other right. Culturally, in places like Africa, in places like even the US, there is still a stigma against what women can do, can wear, can say. And then it manifests in violence. We have to start with what we think and how we see each other. And then we have to agitate for change like crazy. We can't lose hope. Right. We really can't lose hope. It'll take some time, but I need everyone to leave here, number one, self-checking, and number two, thinking about the ways in which you can begin to shift. Is it encouraging Phil to have another conversation? Is it plugging into what equality now does? You can do something. You have a lot of it within you. Don't be afraid. Don't be complicit. If we continue it this way, where the world is going, it's just going to come back and affect each and every person. So please, let's do something in our own capacity, in small ways and big ways. We can actually shift something.
All right.
But thank you for this, Phil.
No, and thank you
And
for
thank you to Equality Now and to
Yeah.
everybody. I think this was amazing.
Having this convo was just, it's been clear to me that I now need to have more niche conversations, because I feel with the police I need a more detailed conversation. There's so much info we need from the police and from the ODPP and, you know, from LVCT. So I'm hoping I can continue these conversations. And now, even with you as the younger people, I mean, there were so many people who needed to speak today and they've not been able to speak. So maybe I need to come to campus and actually talk with you guys kwa ground. Ama ni contain, ama ni club. Mnaendanga wapi siku hizi? Tutakuja huko hivyo kote. But I have to wrap it up because of time. Thank you so much for everyone who's watching and engaging with us. This has been made possible by Equality Now, who are championing for equality of everyone and just championing the rights of women and laws that protect them. Thank you so much, Equality Now, for the partnership. And to all of you, we had a very early call time and you guys were here on time and we started on time, and I don't take that for granted. And I hope in one small way we've started having the conversation and something will change. This has been Phil Moderates. Thank you so much. All right.